for Teacher of the Year. I believe she represents what is best about our school district, people who care and want to make it a better place for everyone. So Nikki, those are just a few words of the many written in support of your nomination and selection as Teacher of the Year. I do believe wholeheartedly that you exemplify the outstanding teaching we have here in our district. I'm very proud of you and congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Nick.
Thank you.
And when the trophy shop opens, we'll have an appropriate plaque created for you and maybe even present that in person at a future board meeting. But we certainly did at least want to recognize you tonight, as we also did last Thursday when we drove around the school honking our horns, and that was just a lot of fun too. I don't know how surprised you were, because I think the cat might have gotten out of the bag the night before.
It's all right.
But it was nice to see your mom there as well as your kids.
Yeah,
so I'm glad that for you it was a family affair as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Don.
Financial report, page 8 through 17. Presentation of monthly check register, 8 through 14.
So this month, Ashley Genema, treasurer, reviewed the check register and she approved it via email. These are our accounts payable checks, and so I ask that the board approve the total amount, which is $1,031,227.34 for the month of April.
Make the motion to approve as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Financial report.
Really? I think I will. There's so much going on financially. Sandy and I have just had hours and hours of conversation. So I think that I'm going to defer to Sandy when we get to that part, and we may, tag team on that at time. But it's so much is going on. It's a little overwhelming. So we are just one day at a time, one webinar at a time. New information is coming out daily. So I will let Sandy go into the details of that.
Okay, so we're going past that. Committee reports, building and site. Who is our person for that?
I can take care of that. So we had a building and site meeting. It was mostly to talk about how we're going to stack our priority list for the sinking fund. Where are we going to borrow money in advance of our actually receiving the money? Some of the things we talked about is obviously the 911 system, the plumbing, the water, the drinking fountains that need to be replaced because they didn't test within acceptable guidelines. So the plumbing issue mostly is where do we start and where do we stop? Because I think, like Scott's brought up numerous times, that it's not a simple case of just disconnecting it from the wall and attaching a new outlet or a new drinking fountain. Our problems go beyond that. So that's kind of where we left that conversation, is just to start figuring out where we're going to start putting our priorities. The 911 phone system, we have at least until January of 2021, I believe, that we have to be in compliance with it. Ian's working on a couple solutions to that. But I'm looking through my notes here. They're kind of all over the place, actually, it looks like. So with that, that's still, it's not mandated at this moment, but because it was something that we promised the voters in the community that we had to address, it's on the top of the list. As far as the lending, it takes about a couple months to even get the money if we were to borrow it. I think as a building and site committee, our suggestion to the board as a whole would be that we don't borrow any money, just for the simple fact that then we're paying interest on it and things like that. And as it stands, I don't think there's a rush to borrow any money at this moment, because we have to get our list of priorities in place. And with that in mind, there was discussion about bringing in an engineer or architect firm to come up with basically the scope of our needs, to come up with a plan and say, this is what you need to fix now, this is what you need to fix later, and this is the route you should take, and kind of give us a more professional and concise list with an approximate value of getting those things done that we can start bidding out. And then we know, I guess, kind of a ballpark point of view as to how much it's going to cost. So when bids start coming in, we know if they're within a range or not. So I don't know that I missed anything. If I did, I hope somebody that was in attendance like Brad or Sandy can pipe up and set me straight.
Was there any further comment on that?
No, I think John did a very good job of saying what we talked about there.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the athletic committee. Who was the person for that?
Me. Rob did most of the talking in our meeting, but we talked about the new potential coaches that we were going to have for football. Talked about the grief regarding Coach Dion's passing. Talked about who we're going to put for possible varsity football head coach positions. I don't know if you want me to talk about those now. Sandy?
Yeah, that'd be fine, Avis, because that's what's the order of the minutes there.
Okay, well, I didn't know if we were having it open for public yet, but they're gonna have Ben Olson be the head coach. Then Darren Sunavi is going to be an offensive coach. Also Tab Lonergan, he'll also be an assistant. They're thinking of looking in the future. Tonight we're going to, if you guys okay it, hire Derek Nyquist as the junior varsity head football coach, within hopes of eventually putting him in the position of head coach. We talked about the cheer program. He talked about sidelining cheer and the competitive cheer.
Did we lose her?
Uh-oh, am I not close enough again? Can you hear me now? Uh-oh.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, did you hear everything you could hear me?
I did.
I
Okay.
heard everything.
Loud and
Yeah.
clear.
Okay, maybe it's just Dawn. So we talked about a lot of that. We talked about the changes that we're going to be voting on tonight for our athletic code, our book that we vote on every year, make a few changes. There's a list of the changes in your books. I don't think you want me to go through those now. If we have to, I can go through those later when we vote on it. We also talked about some proposed summer activities. The board doesn't need to approve those because we don't transport to those activities. We also talked about interest in a memorial for Coach Brown. He's still working on that. Rob also talked about putting an application to the Detroit Lions touchdown program in your town. That would help improve our weight room. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting that. He also, Scott and himself, wrote a grant for USA football, and hopefully that can upgrade our football field lights. Rob also gave an update to us on the All Sports Booster Club. They've so far contributed $39,061 to the general fund budget. She wrote here $15,500 above the general fund budget for other projects to support student athletes. And we congratulated Rob on finishing, which is not in your notes, his degree. He now has his degree. And we also put a kudos out to the boosters, Missy Delmont, Dee Carter, Jill Jane, Lori Rentala Wills, hope I said her name right, Kim Soring, Julie Anderson. And that's it.
Thank you.
Any
Ava.
questions? Oh, sorry.
Was that a 4-year degree or 2-year degree? I can't remember.
It was a 4-year degree.
It was a 4-year, okay.
Mhm. And Rob was just joining us here. He was waiting to be let into the room.
Oh, no.
So thank you for holding off on the athletic code changes. Once he gets in, then when it comes time to approve those, then you can review the list at that time.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay, great. Superintendent's report, board update.
So, in our information section, we have specific updates about the strategic plan, sinking fund, and food service truck. So I'll hold off on those, but start with a couple of in-district things and then talk a little bit about the budget, or a lot about the budget. We believe we have 43 graduates this spring. Mr. Fluger and I were talking about, is it 42 or 43? But I think we're at 43. Right now, we have a walk planned down the boulevard to Gilbert and back, starting at the high school on May 29th, Friday night at 7:00 p.m. And then with the intent of still very much wanting a face-to-face graduation or in-person graduation, Mr. Fluger and his committee and students talked about then scheduling graduation for June 26th, which is a Friday night also, at 7:00, hoping that by then things will be released a little bit. I know this Friday is restaurants at 50% and, groups of no more than 10. So hopefully if that goes well, we may be to the point of being able to have more people in a group. Today I talked, I was in a meeting with Dr. Rice, the State Superintendent of Education, with the UP superintendents. And we talked about that outdoor graduation possibility, as many districts in the UP and perhaps throughout the state, but many districts throughout the UP are really wanting to do an in-person graduation. And so we proposed that to him. And I think he's going to champion that idea for us, with perhaps maybe giving special permission to do something like that, even if the limits on crowds are still in place. I talked to Mr. Fluger about, do we want to move that date or not up a little earlier? And because it's already been distributed as June 26th, we thought it was important to keep that date to allow people to plan. Is there anything you want to add about any of the graduation news, Mr. Fluger?
Well, I think you got it all summed up. Did the question, the 42nd or 43rd student is a certificate completion student that we're going to isolate down tomorrow to verify what we're doing with him. Otherwise, I think you nailed everything else right on the head.
Okay, thank you. And then at the other spectrum, incoming kindergarten, because we could not do face-to-face registration this month, I know I miss the thought of having that countdown to kindergarten bus ride and lunch that we usually do in May. But we do have our kindergarten registration online. So Ian and his team worked hard at getting a Google form, which is now on our webpage, so people can go in and register for kindergarten. And then in August, as we open up the school year, we will then capture those birth certificates and shot records and signatures at that time. But as I've said before, I want people to be engaged to us so that come fall, they marry us. I'm concerned that if we wait until August to register, or at least provide that opportunity, then it won't be in the minds and the intent of people to send their kids to the Gwynn schools. So I think an online registration was the right way to go. I appreciate, Ian, very much all of your work on that. It really helps to have, excuse me, Ian, a nerdy tech guy as your IT, because he has a lot of hidden talents that have really helped us out quite a bit since he's been here. So thank you, Ian, for that. And today's report, we have 20 registered so far for kindergarten, pretty evenly split between 10 at Sawyer and 10 at Gilbert. So we're off to a start. And for that, I'm very grateful. Governor Whitmer this past week announced that she wants to have a learning advisory council, a return to learning advisory council made up of parents and teachers and administrators and students to help guide her decision-making in how are we going to return to school this fall. And this has been another source of many Zoom meetings and discussion. Whether we are face-to-face as we were in the fall of 2019 remains to be seen. If I had to put money on the table, I'm going to tell you it's probably not going to be as it was in the fall of 2019. But what variation from that is anybody's guess. Whether it would still be online, whether it would be split your students into 2 groups, perhaps in our district, a black and a gold group, and half the students come one day and half come the other day. On the days the students are not in school, then they're into online learning. Would it be that, we have to have them all wear masks? And would it be that we have to take their temperatures before they come to school? The Marisa superintendents were joking about that very temperature thing the other day. It's not good enough to take a child's temperature when they get to school because first they're together on the bus. So are you going to have a bus aide ride the bus just to take kids' temperatures before they get on the bus? And when it's 20 degrees outside, are you going to be holding up a laptop in front of them 3 feet away to take their temperature when it's 20 degrees below outside? I mean, all of it is just, it's crazy conversation at this point. And again, nobody knows that. So the words that I've used time and time again at the end of every week on my video updates, stay tuned, is truly where we're at. We're also stay tuned as far as budget goes. And so right now, the state aid fund is going to see a decrease of $1.25 billion with a B billion dollars in fiscal year 20, which is the year we're in. It's going to see a 1.14 billion decrease in revenue in fiscal year 21, and a 720 million with an M drop in fiscal year 22. So as Dr. Reich said today, this is going to take a couple of years to wade through some very hard times for education in the state of Michigan. What this means currently for our district, as well as all districts throughout the state, we're looking at a potential cut yet this year, a proration of $650 to $700 per student this year. And the sad thing for all districts, we don't have any way of recapturing that money through making any changes in instruction, in busing, in hourly employees. There isn't anything at this point that we can do to recapture that cut. So in our district, because we have a $314,000 anticipated fund balance at the end of June, that was approved in your February approval of the updated budget, the amended budget. And because we are being given $371,000 in CARES Act, and because we have some potential savings this year from not purchasing substitute teachers, this last quarter, not purchasing fuel, we could potentially have the $736,000 cut that we think we could incur this year if we're allowed to spend the CARES Act money on our current needs. But what that would leave us is not much going into for a fund balance for next year. And the problem with a cut or proration this year, right now, we have $8,111 per student. If the state should cut us $700 per kid, that leaves our starting number for next year. And next year, they're looking at a potential $500 additional cut per student. So then we're looking at an anticipated revenue per child next year of $6,911. And how any school in this state can run an education for students that's meaningful is beyond words. Now, there may be other federal programs that assist the state. The legislature sure has to decide whether to accept the proration this year or not. That's in the law. They can accept it, or they could use part of the stabilization fund to fill in the hole a little bit. That's their rainy day fund. But they're limited at how much rainy day or stabilization fund they can use. So it's not like it can fill the entire hole of $1.25 billion. Or certainly the state could generate revenue to offset the proration, but how are you going to generate revenue when there isn't any way to generate the revenue and no one's got money for higher gas taxes or anything of that nature? Another issue for our district next year is we are going to be losing a high year of our 3-year averaging. You've heard about, how we are budgeted on our 3 years of our enrollment. And so right now, this year's budget is based on 1,052 students on paper, even though in person, we only had 1,030 students. So with that 3-year averaging, the previous year falls off and the current year rolls in, we could lose about 15 kids when those numbers flip over in that 3-year averaging. 15 students at even the 6911 number is another potential loss of $103,000 just because we have fewer students that our budget is based on. Our total loss next year could be about $630,000 plus any operating loss from this year. And again, I say operating loss because this year we're going to incur an operating loss based on we don't have enough revenue to cover expenditures, but we have our fund balance plus CARES Act plus savings to help fill that hole. But that loss, operational loss, goes into next year. Maybe Amy can help with that a little bit too if you have questions. So can we possibly find $900,000 next year out of our budget to have a balanced budget for 2021? $900,000, I would be a little hard pressed to start my list, but I have started a list. And what is time consuming though to vet out the savings of each item on the list. And it's also time consuming to look at the viability of each of those possibilities. For example, the district has talked about transportation and looking at cutting back on transportation at Sawyer. Is that a viable option or not? Are the sidewalks going to be plowed in the wintertime? Do parents have cars to get their kids to school? Certainly each decision cannot just be written down and said, this is what we're going to do. Each item of possible savings has to be vetted out for the amount of savings it's going to be, whether the juice is going to be worth the squeeze, I like to say, and also whether it is a viable and appropriate item to put on the list. So Amy, I don't know if you want to add anything to that gloom and doom or not.
No, I think you thoroughly depressed everybody enough. I think you did a great job, Sandy.
You know, I think the bottom line for the board is, I think it's important to understand that this is not just our district.
Yeah.
This is the state of education throughout the state of Michigan. And it's not just us, and it's not poor management of money on our part, on my part, Amy's part, or the board's part. This is the state of the Union of Education, again, in the state of Michigan. And I go back to what I said last month. I am grateful that we are out of deficit. I am grateful that we made the decisions we did and saved money when we could, because we do have that $314,000 fund balance to draw upon at this point. I only wish that our fund balance was $1 million to draw upon. And the sad thing is, we have worked so diligently to get out of deficit and to start to build that fund balance. And basically, they've whacked their knees off. But again, we're not the only district. So we will make good decisions. We will vet every single decision we make. We will be firm in what we decide to do, and we will move the district forward, because we have a good track record of that these last 2 years, and we'll continue to move the ship forward. It might get stuck in the sandbar a little bit, but we'll continue to keep it afloat, and we'll continue to move it forward. And some of the things that we wanted to do are going to be put on pause. For example, Scott had gotten this grant, $41,000 grant to buy the wheelchair bus, but our portion of that would have been $60,000. That project is being put on hold at this point. We can extend the grant out till December of 2021. So we still have time next year to act on that if we choose to do that. But the amount that we would have had to pay, $60,000 to $65,000, I cannot put that kind of money on a wheelchair bus, even though it is needed. We do still have a wheelchair bus to get our students where they need to go. And so we will hold on that project. And, you know, other personnel things that I would love to do, would love to add in another teacher, would love to add in another administrator, would love to just do so much for the kids. A lot of those projects are just going to be put on hold, and we will put them in the someday pile, but the someday won't be tomorrow. Does anybody have any questions?
Can I just add, I did remember we talked about the cash flows and our borrowing.
Yes.
And so while we know that while we cannot pass a deficit budget, and so we'll be required to find a way to make this all work. But the other piece that's going to require us to make it work is just merely from cash. We can't be overspending to an extent that's so great that we cannot borrow that much money. Tomorrow morning, I have a webinar with Troon specifically about cash flow and borrowing, because again, we're not the only district that's in this state of affairs. And so, you know, rough math is that it looks like we might have to borrow about 40% more next year if we did not make any cuts. And other people are going to be, you know, in the same boat. And so what does that look like? Is the state aid borrowing pool even large enough to handle everybody increasing their borrowing? Are there lenders out there, not just for our state, but for the state for the country as a whole. We're not the only school district that, borrows. So there's another layer of this, and it comes down to the end of the day, we want to be able to make payroll. So having the cash to do that, it's going to be really important that we find a way to get the budget to a manageable spot so that we can borrow the amount that we need to cover our shortfall like we do every year. Even though we have a fund balance, we still have to borrow, over $1.5 million every year just because of timing and other things. So those issues are still there. And now we've added a severe reduction in revenue from the state. So it really complicates that borrowing process.
So I have a question. How is that going to impact our state plan that we're already on? Because of our deficit?
Yeah, we are no longer on that because we are out of deficit.
Okay, so we're totally not red flagged at all anymore?
Correct.
Fantastic. I thought it took 5 years though.
Mm-mm.
No?
We were on a 5-year plan, probably at one point where you got that from is we thought it might take us 5 years to get out of deficit. And instead it was 3? I think it was
Fantastic.
17, June of 17 is when we went in. And then we came out June of 19. So it took us 2 years to pull out.
Okay, and we did.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah.
Districts, when they go under 5%, I believe they're on a watch plan with the state. That was one of the questions posed today in the state finance meeting was with many, many districts going now to less than 5% of their fund balance. Would they all go on the watch plan and the state wouldn't have the wherewithal or the people to work with all of the districts when they all go under anyway.
Okay.
There might be a list, but there's no plan that we're on. We do not report to the state. So
Right.
there might be a list, a watch list. There are other indicators that will put you on that list. Even if you're not, you could have more than a 5% fund balance, but if they see rapidly declining fund balance and if they see a rapidly declining student enrollment, those are some of the triggers of financial stress. And so they will put you on a list and work with you. But there's no more monitoring that the state has over us now. No more monthly reporting to them.
Okay, great. Okay. Was that everything then, Sandy?
It is, Dawn. Thank you.
Do we have any correspondence?
I don't believe so. Jane, are you there? Jane is not there. No, I was not given any, so no.
No
Okay.
correspondence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, now we're going to go on to the information part of the meeting. We're going to start with the strategic plan update.
So isn't it an interesting time to have a new strategic plan? Because some of the goals in the strategic plan was to increase student attendance rates at all grade levels in all schools. Well, what a challenge that is when you don't even get to see your students and you have no clue who's going to send their kids to school next year or who's going to keep them home because they're scared of COVID. And that's just one example of, the goal areas that we have. What I've been doing is looking over this strategic plan and yet using it to, frame some of the decisions that we need to make. For example, under academics and programs, we have develop and introduce an online academy for Gwin students. And what a wonderful opportunity we have now to work hard on that and establish an online academy. Because if students are going to leave us and go to cyber school, it needs to be the Gwin Area Community Schools cyber school and not Patriot Academy or any other virtual possibility. So even though there are some pieces in here that again have to be on pause. There are certainly pieces in here that we can still move forward with. Under communications and community involvement, provide weekly superintendent update via multiple platforms in media. So hopefully you've been tuning in every Friday afternoon to the latest update for the week. And again, just trying to share with the community what's happening in the school and what's going on in the news, advertising our board meeting tonight, for example, as well as our graduation walk coming up, just trying to stay connected to the community. So our strategic plan does very much continue to help frame our work as long as we keep it front and center and keep referring to it.
Yes, thank you. Now sinking fund update.
So based on the board committee's recommendation about not borrowing money, which again, it was the recommendation that Scott, Amy, and I brought to the Building and Site Committee, that would be, our intent as a district is we're not going to borrow money at this point. So we are not going to be entering into any projects this year. And again, I will communicate that out to the community and an update on our website, on Facebook in writing, as well as in a video this coming Friday. And then moving forward to connect with an architect to get, for example, I think what brought that on in the conversation was talking about the plumbing. Well, how much plumbing do we need to replace? Do we need to replace just the 4 fixtures that have lead content? Do we need to replace, plumbing deep down into the building? Do we need to do just those 4 rooms deep down? Do we need to do the whole building? And so getting some kind of an opinion on that other than a Scott, Sandy, Amy board building and site committee meeting opinion and getting some direction. And I would add that the prices that we have on that year 1 list came also from previous reviews of our facilities from architects or engineers from past years. But those amounts on that list as to how much projects cost certainly are very viably not as accurate as things change, from year to year. And some of those projects, it's been a while. So we can proceed with those types of things because, those engineers and architects get paid after the fact. And so I think we can comfortably move forward with that thought without incurring any expenses on that. We also are hooked into Tony Bertucci, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Finance up at Marisa, who as a business manager over in Nishpeming has been through bond projects and sinking fund projects, and so has a wealth of information to share with us, and has also agreed to come out to our district and meet with us and give us some assistance with that process as well. So that's what I would certainly make sure that the public knows as well, Don, because one of the pieces we strive for in the passing of the sinking fund was to be transparent with the community and let them know what's going on. And I think at this point, it's prudent not to borrow money because although we could take it out of the sinking fund, I think it's prudent not to do that at this point.
I agree. I think that every bit of dimes that we get, we need to spend on the repairs and the things that we need instead of using it to pay back the bank. So I completely agree with you. Okay, the update on the food service truck.
So I'm going to let Scott and then Barbie pipe in on this update. We have an opportunity to purchase a food service truck, a new food service truck. And I want to start by just stating that the food service fund is not general fund money. It is not sinking fund money. And so lest we talk about being $900,000 in the deficit or, needing to make cuts next year, know that it's a separate, completely different fund, and Amy can also weigh in on that if needed. Scott, you have the floor or the microphone or the camera.
Well, there's not much to say other than the current truck that we have now needs to be replaced. We looked at all options and I went over it with Neil. And Neil's worked on this before, and because of new laws that have taken effect, the box is so bad. If we went to replace just the box, because it's not, we'd have to reduce the size of the box because of the axle system and the frame system that it sits on. And then because the box does have some contamination, some rust and whatnot, which comes into play if you need to replace the back lift gate. And that's the main issue with it, is the lift gate. The lift gate would probably cost us approximately, we figured, around $9,000 with labor to put it on. But that's not knowing the extent of if the box could be repaired to attach the lift gate to it. So just looking at everything, and once again, Neil went over it real with a fine-tooth comb with me and took pictures and everything. And because once again, it was like, there's not a lot of miles on the vehicle. However, they are short miles, which is not good for a vehicle to start, run a short distance, shut off, start, run a short distance and shut off. That's not good on them. However, I think at this point, if we have an opportunity with the finances that Barbie has and to purchase a new truck, I think it would be the right decision to make. Also, we went through a bidding process through my deal, which has already been approved by the state, so we don't have to go and get all the bids and do all the legwork. They've already done it for us. And so it's pretty simple and it's set to go. So that's my take on it. Do you want to add something, Barbie?
No, I don't need anything to add, except that I only have a few staff that can truly use it correctly. The rest have too much trouble to use it, and so it's truly a safety concern. That's all.
And Amy, do you want to talk about the food service fund balance at this point and how we believe it can support the purchase at this time?
Sure. I think one of the biggest blessings that we've had for the food service fund particularly is that last year, the USDA and on the national level, they changed the formula, which allowed our rate to increase. And so we are now allowed, as you know, we give free breakfast district-wide. And so we're at 93, 94%, maybe even 95. So that they're all 95% of the meals that we serve are reimbursable at the federal rate. And so that rate is quite a bit higher than even what our parents pay. And so this is why it is almost, I mean, it's really a blessing, because if we didn't have this program and kids were paying, we wouldn't make as much money. And so where we've gotten to the point on this is that our food service fund is only allowed to have 3 months worth of expenses in fund balance. And so we were getting near the top of that anyways, and we were going to be required to go on a spend down plan. So the timing of this is really, really good in that this is a need of her program. And we're needing to spend down the funds anyways. So again, just to reiterate, this has nothing to do with the general fund. This is a fund that only takes in predominantly the revenue from the federal government for the National School Lunch Program, which includes breakfast, and then the expenses, which is the servers and the food service workers and the cooks and Barbie and the food that they buy. It's those expenses, so it's separate. And that's where this food truck would come out of, which I think you see the quote is in the back. So I just want to make sure before I misspeak. Yes, it's about close to $40,000, which is a large number. The last time we purchased a truck was 2007, 2008, somewhere around that time frame. So our truck now is 10 to 12 years old. And hopefully this truck will last another 10 years. But the fund balance is going to be right around $150,000 as it is. So taking 40 out of that will not even put that fund into jeopardy. So I suspect in another couple of years, Barbie, you'll have to be buying some more refrigerators or something like that. It's just doing so well. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Anything from you, Barbie?
No, does anybody have any questions? I would really like to have this purchase before school starts so that the person that'll be driving it is accustomed to it and not, jumping in and not feeling confident.
Barb, have you found this truck already? And is it local or do you have to go out of state for it?
No, it's My Deal is a company that does all of the bidding for us. And they've already gotten those bids to Amy and Scott.
It's statewide. My Deal is a statewide cooperative. So per this, the state law and even our board, your board policies, which follow that, because this is above the competitive bidding threshold, we would have been required to competitively bid this unless if we use an authorized bidding consortium. And My Deal does qualify for that. So I think even Brad, when you first got on the board, you had asked about My Deal. So you might be familiar with that at the township. If you buy any vehicles or equipment, it probably all comes through My Deal.
Yeah, we use it quite a bit at the township, and it works great. Saves a lot of work.
Yeah. So because of that, this particular is in Westland, Michigan, the Todd Wenzel Buick GMC of Westland. So they are the ones that have the bid for this particular truck. But yes, it has been found. Yes, they are the ones who gave us the My Deal pricing.
And I do want to thank Neil and Scott for all the work they did already pertaining to this. They were really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, is this truck going to be a V6 or V8 or diesel or what? Or Barb?
It would be a V8. It would be a V8 truck.
V8 gas.
Okay.
Gasoline.
Okay, so how long before we'll have it?
Well, as soon as we get told to get it ordered, we'll get it ordered. I don't know the exact time schedule. When you order trucks like this, they come in pieces. General Chevrolet will do the chassis on it, and then it will be shipped to another plant that they'll put the box on it, and then from that plant it'll go get the lift gate put on it. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get the whole thing done. But once again, because of this company is contracted with the state of Michigan, they're very familiar with this process. So once again, I don't think we could get a quicker process than going through My Deal.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any more discussion on that? Okay, new business. We need to take action on the Marisa resolution, pages 22 through 24. The general fund operating budget for 2021.
Need a motion on that?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, so Sandy, can you help me with this a little bit? Is this just passing the Marisa general budget that we do every year?
Yes, protocol requires us to pass a resolution to approve their general fund operating budget for the 2021 school year. So we either have to support or disapprove with our reasons if we disapprove. And if you look on page 23, You see their proposed budget has their revenues. And then on the next page, it has their expenditures with a fund balance of that year at $2,224,000. So, you know, we have any yays or nays other than just to say yay or nay that you approve it.
Okay, so I need a second.
I'll second approval.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, count 2020 and 21 count, need a motion?
So, Jane, I don't see the calendar in the book, but you sent it to the board, correct?
It's separate.
Yes, it was a separate document.
All right, thank you. So again, we have to
You're
negotiate.
welcome.
We have to negotiate the calendar with the GEA. And so the GEA has a committee that meets with our administration as well as with Jane. And what we have worked out here is a calendar of 180 days for students and 184 for teachers. In the past, 21 years that I've been here, teachers have worked 182, they've worked 184, they've worked 185. So the teacher days kind of vary depending upon when we start and when we stop. And what we wanted to do collectively was to put 3 of our PD days in August before the kids come to school, because we really want the kids to be butt in seats as much as possible. They are going to need the instruction. We need them to be in class. We need the teachers to be in class. And so 3 PD days starting the week of August 24th, we would have teachers come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And when I say teachers, I mean all staff come that week. 25th would be the first all district in-service day. The students then coming on Monday, August 31st, and we get out of school then on Friday, June 4th. And my perception is that getting done on June 4th was real important to the teachers, so we didn't have to drip into the next week of June. Also, the state allows us to use some of our PD days or designate some of our PD days as instructional days. And so we are working on getting 2 days in August and perhaps our October 9th PD day as well to be also designated as instruction time, although kids are not there, obviously, in seat. But that gives us a little cushion if we have extra snow days next year, counting those days as instructional days, and hence having 183 instructional days allows us a little cushion if we have a lot of snow days next year. So again, we wouldn't have to be making up some snow days. And we'll talk about the PD a little later on your agenda. So this is the calendar that we would propose.
So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposed schedule.
I'll second.
A second. Okay. Do we have any discussion? Because I have a couple questions. Avis, you're on mute, I think. We had 3 calendars last year that we picked from. Were all of those calendars GEA negotiated calendars?
Last year, there were 2 calendars that we ended up with because one was a before Labor Day start date, and one was after Labor Day start date.
Okay.
And this one is again before Labor Day. We didn't even consider after Labor Day because we didn't want to be going to school until the middle of June.
Okay, and the other, I'm sorry.
Most districts in our area have now gone to a before Labor Day start with kids because Labor Day is so late this coming fall.
Okay, and my next question is there any chance that you know of at this point that this could change per the governor?
Anything is possible, Dawn. And
Not the answer I want.
we have to,
Okay,
we have to have a starting spot, you know?
yep,
We have to have a starting spot, and I believe that this is a good starting spot. And I know we have some teachers in attendance here, and I just want to show my appreciation in words, at least, that the teachers really, I think, have the hearts and needs of the kids in mind when we negotiated this calendar together.
okay,
It has a lot of instructional time for kids. And if you'll note in the calendar, there are only 2 half days as well. So we have, as far as PD days, there's 2 half days that are PD days. And there are other half days like before a break and whatnot, you know. But if it's a half day before a break, well, then the whole family's on vacation.
okay, and I also want to point out that I really am glad that spring break is around Easter so that we have that time off. Just wanted to say that. So, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. We need to appoint a board representative for negotiations. So it cannot be John, it cannot be Ashley. Brad, is that something you could fit in your schedule? No?
I could if I needed to. If we could get somebody else to do it this year, I'd be happy to do it the next time, but this year is pretty crazy for me.
Since TJ replaced Glenn, should we just make TJ do it?
Absolutely.
Since it was Glenn's job?
TJ, would you be okay doing that?
I'd love it.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to appoint TJ.
Second and third.
Aye.
Aye.
So did somebody second it?
Oh, yes, and the third.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Opposed?
TJ.
Nobody really wants to do that, eh?
Thank you, TJ.
And TJ, I will connect with you via phone and have some good conversation about what our needs are, okay? Thank you.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, we need to appoint a professional development committee to use PD as instruction.
So again,
Sandy?
going with the new law last fall that said we can use instruction as PD and vice versa. In order to do that, we have to plan our PD out. We have to apply for sketchies or credits for that PD. And the PD has to be planned by a district committee that's appointed by the board. So we're not naming names tonight, but I would recommend that the committee appoint, the board appoint a committee made up of administration and 2 teacher representatives from each elementary building, and from the high school and middle school, a teacher representative from every discipline. So, you know, a math person, a language arts person, so that everybody has some say at the table, so to speak. So those people, plus the administration, and that's what I would recommend to the board.
Okay, so you want a committee from all schools?
So a committee represented for PD
Mm-hmm.
made up of 2 representatives from each elementary school So there's 4 elementary teachers total.
Okay.
And 1 teacher representative from each of the 4 disciplines at the middle school, high school. So 4 middle school, high school teachers, 1 from language arts, 1 math, etc. So 8 teachers total. And we may add more to that, but that would be the minimum that I would want to work with.
Okay, so I need a motion.
Make a
Can I-
motion to approve?
Okay, need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, athletic handbook, page 26. But, so are we going to, well, actually, is there any changes in here?
And Rob, why don't you go ahead and speak to that?
On page 26, each of the pages listed, and sometimes there's duplicate items for a page. But each of those were recommended changes to the athletic committee that were at least supported from the committee standpoint. So does the board wish for myself or Avis to go through each one individually, or with the packet, have you had time to already review them?
I would like for Avis to go through it individually, if that's okay.
Keep on. Are you ready? So page 1, well, the cover page, we just wanted to change the date. The 2020 season, 2021. You see that? Then on page 2. Oh, great. Sorry, guys, For page 2, in the bullet point number 1, we're going to add the word school. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Good. You guys don't have this. Can you see these? Is this easier for you to see it like this? No? I'll just read it. Page number 3, where it says under appearance, you're going to add a final sentence that student handbook guidelines apply. And we also did under attendance and suspension, sorry. We're changing the number of days of 13 to 9. So we're gonna lower them for excessive absences for all middle high school students to follow credit with the guidelines in the middle school, high school handbook. Page 4. Am I going too fast? No, okay. Under senior awards, add the final sentence, spring 2020, students impacted by COVID-19 will be given special consideration. Page 4, under senior awards, bullet point number 2, we're gonna add the word varsity and add the phrase per sport. Add the sentence, each award will be accompanied by either the McCormick Haryu scholarships and or the all sports booster scholarships. Page 6, under practice, add the sentence, unexcused absences may result in team consequences and possible team dismissal. Page 6, under dual sports, bullet point number 1, italicized school district and MHSAA. Page number 7, under dual sports, bullet point number 5, change $240 to $600, which would be the family limit. On page 8, under training rules / violations, due process, bullet point number 2, add a comma after bullying. Take out the word and add the phrase other criminal acts after hazing. Page number 8, under training rules, violations, due process, bullet point number 2B, we're going to delete the phrase including vapors since it's a duplicate mention. Also on page 8, under training rules / violations / due process, bullet point number 2F, we're going to delete max alert since it's outdated. And page 10, under 3I, we will delete depending on the situation and replace it when there's irrefutable evidence, such as juvenile court reports, things like that, police reports. So Dawn, complete.
Thank you very much. Okay. Did we already have a motion to approve that? Yes?
No, we did not.
I'll make a motion to approve that with the corrections.
I just had one question.
We have any discussion?
Yeah, just I had one question about changing the dual sports from 240 to 600. Can you just discuss with me a bit about why that change was made?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Avis.
Family price, DJ, and when we upped our amount for them to play, we had to up that. We did not change that last year, or was it the year before?
So what it basically means is a family before would be capped out at 240. Now they're capped out at $600 of what they have to pay for their kids to participate in sports, right?
Right.
Did that answer your question, TJ?
Is that consistent with other school districts around the area?
Probably cheaper.
We're cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Rob, was there a typo in last year's athletic code with 240? Or was the amount actually 240 this past year?
So on this go round, in the current athletic code that we had within this current school year, it has been 600. And so this requested change is due to the fact that in a second section within the athletic code, the past 240 did not get changed to 600, where it was already changed in a separate section. So it's just almost kind of like a grammatical change, so to say.
Okay, thank you.
We're not really increasing the cost to parents. We're just fixing basically a typo, correct?
Correct from my end, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so I need a motion to approve the purchase of the food truck.
I'll make a motion to approve the food truck through My Deal Pricing.
I'll second.
Do we have any more discussion on that?
I have one question. Are we looking at options for the running boards on that, Scott or Barb?
I'm trying to think. I don't have the paperwork in front of me.
Well, it says options here and it's heavy duty mesh running boards galvanized $975. Is that for the back, I'm assuming, to step into it, or is that to get into the vehicle? I'm assuming it must be the mesh back to get into the back of it, correct?
I would think it would. I would think it
If
would.
that's not on there, I would highly recommend it for safety concerns, because that'd be a heck of a step to get in there without that, to get in the back of that, wouldn't it?
Well,
If
that's what
not
the lift gate's for.
That is for entering on the passenger and driver's sides.
Okay,
And probably, and probably we probably won't get them.
okay.
I also had one question on that. And are we looking at to have that delivered, or are we gonna drive down and pick that up? What's the thought there?
Well, we're still debating that, but there's a good possibility we'll drive down and get it.
Okay.
One option, if I could throw out there, folks, we do have a lot of work downstate, and some of our trucks, flatbeds, low boys, come back empty. Van Dam, if it's set up correctly, could bring that back up. I'm sure
would be really
probably for next to nothing,
Yeah, that would be really nice.
but that's something for the future. I guess we'll just have to talk about it more later.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Personnel, a motion to approve Derek Nyquist as the head junior varsity football coach, Gwynn Middle High School, effective date of hire, first day of the 220 fall sports season.
I will make a motion to accept Derek Nyquist as head football, or for a football coach.
big second here.
Do we have any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, gifts and donations. Eagle Mine, $1,000 cash donation to the Gwynn Area Community Schools Food Service Department to help cover costs of school lunches during the COVID-19 school closure. Family of Keegan Cantala, homemade face masks to be distributed to students through the school meal pickup program at KI Sawyer Elementary School. I need a motion to approve.
Make a motion?
Second,
Make a motion to approve the second. and disconnected.
okay. Do we have any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have any public comment? Okay. None being heard. Do we have any board member comments?
Yeah, I do. I would like to congratulate all the seniors and wish them the best of luck in the future. Very proud of all of them. Congratulate Rob on his degree. Good job, Rob. Congratulations on that. Mrs. Sheltro, congratulations on Teacher of the Year. Something to be proud of also. I was wondering about the Gwynn, the sign out front of the Gwynn High School. Is there any way to get all the seniors' names to scroll across that for this year, and even for the years to come? Just to get their names out there. I think they're getting ripped off a little bit because of this, with graduation and all that. I seen a thing about the signs for seniors. I thought that was a great idea. I loved it. And I would like to see that also continue in the future. I would have liked to know a little more information on that when it all started and that stuff. And that was really hard to get information on. I thought it was great though. I love the idea. So keep up the good work there. That'll be it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Anybody else? Okay, well, I want to say congratulations to the seniors and congratulations to Nikki. I absolutely, she's so deserving of this award. The other thing I wanted to say is the Friends of Gwynn Area Community Schools, I believe is who it was, raised $4,300 for the signs to be put along the boulevard. And whatever monies weren't spent are gonna go to, I believe, buy the seniors things or help fund something with that. So I wanted to say thank you to those ladies and all for all their hard work, because it's so greatly appreciated with them not getting the recognition that they need during this crisis. So I wanted to say that. So, and that's all. Anything else? All right, meeting adjourned at 7:48.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.